Carson Palmer back with us. All right, 4th and 3. You got Mac Jones playing well. You got 37-yard line. You got a defensive secondary that's depleted. Why didn't Bill Belichick go for it with Mac Jones?
Well, I just think Belichick's used to having great kickers, and he has a ton of confidence in his kicker. You go back from Stephen Gostkowski, you go back to Vinatieri. He had a lot of confidence. I know it's rainy, there was no wind, but that was a game winner, and he went for it just simply because he's got a lot of confidence in his special teams crew.
Yeah, but I'm going to give Brady the ball, even though he's down, with 55 seconds to go and 2 timeouts. I don't want Brady having the ball where he can go down. He's got to go 35, maybe 40 yards to win the game.
Yeah, but the way that game was going defensively, he was frustrating Brady all game long. Defensively, they were bringing a lot of different pressures, giving him a lot of different looks. I just felt, watching that and seeing that decision unfold, he felt like he was going to kick the game winner and then kick the ball off and stop Brady on defense, which would have been a pretty Belichickian thing to do.
If Brady is Belichick's quarterback last night, is he going for it on 4th and 3?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
when you watch Belichick and the history of what he's done, he sticks by his guns. He does what he does. He confuses the opposing quarterback. He brings a lot of different pressures. He plays great defense. He wins games with special teams. And unfortunately, it didn't happen last night with the special teams kick at the end that they missed.
Okay, what is it like going against Belichick?
Really frustrating. I unfortunately 2 different times in my career had to open up in a season opener against him, which typically when you play against Belichick, you love to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 game weeks of film to watch preparing. Unfortunately, 2 different times I'm 0 for 2 in an opener against Belichick just because you don't know what to watch. You can watch all the preseason film you want. There's nothing you can really pick up from that. You can watch the prior season's film and the playoff games that he most likely played in the year before and get somewhat of a feel for what he does defensively. But in openers, he's really, really difficult. And for Brady, obviously, it was really difficult last night. It was a frustrating game for Brady. Obviously, there's a lot of hoopla around the return, but he frustrated Brady. He brought a lot of different pressures, and he showed a ton of different looks and played a bunch of different coverages. And Brady never really, as you watch the game go on, never really felt very comfortable and confident in what he was seeing pre-snap and then post-snap.
How is it possible Brady's going to see something he's never seen before in playing over 20 years at that position?
I don't think there is anything he's never seen before, but consistently, he never saw the same coverage. He saw a lot of different looks pre-snap and then a lot of different looks that turned out to be different coverages post-snap. So it wasn't anything new or some new defense that Belichick made up. He just consistently kept him unnerved. He brought a lot of different 5-man pressures. I mean, you looked at what Tampa does, and Tampa likes to spread you out and get in 5-man protections and have 5 receivers run the routes. And Belichick consistently gave him looks where there was possibly 6 guys coming, but they never really made Brady throw hot very often. They consistently brought 5-man pressures, which got defensive linemen in one-on-one situations with their offensive linemen. And, that's what's frustrated Brady throughout his career. You go back to the Super Bowl losses against the New York Giants and the games that Brady really struggled with were pressures and defensive blitzes. And that's what you saw all night long in New England last night.
You on the Cardinals bandwagon?
I'm on it. We're 4-0 right now. I think we have the most exciting team in the NFL to watch. And I think we have the most. Yeah. Oh, I'm allowed to say we 100%. I've earned that right. So I can say
wait,
we.
Are you saying the Bengals are we? Are the Raiders a we for you? Just the Cardinals are we?
I'm a Cardinal. That's where I finished my career. That's what those are the jerseys my kids wear on Sunday. So I'm a Cardinal fan.
Okay. All right. So what makes you, any issues with the Cardinals?
I would say offensive line could be an issue, but Kyler Murray is that dynamic where he doesn't need 5 Pro Bowlers blocking for him. I think right now he's the MVP of the league. If he can keep up what he's doing, I think he's the most valuable player in the league. Defensively, we can stop the run. You got Chandler Jones, you got Isaiah, you got a lot of speed pass rushers, you got some power pass rushers. So I just like the complete package that the Cardinals have right now.
We're talking to Carson Palmer, former NFL quarterback. Ben Roethlisberger. It didn't look pretty. How much of this is on Ben, though, Carson, and how much of this is redirected to the offensive line or play calling or whatever it might be?
It's all of it. I mean, it's all of it. They're not the offensive line they were 4 or 5 years ago when they had Villanueva and just the Pro Bowlers they had stacked up front, and the first round picks they had stacked up. So, part of it's that, but a lot of it too has been, it's not easy to watch right now. You're seeing a quarterback that can't quite create the same velocity with each throw. Some throws are beautiful. You saw the over the shoulder go throw he threw it. That was a nice long completion, but consistently you saw it at the end of, I felt it at the end of my career. You saw it at the end of Peyton's career. You saw it at the end of Drew Brees' career. Balls are starting to really kind of fade off at the end and die. There's not a ton of velocity and a lot of zip on the throws. So as this season goes on, and again, I mean, we're going into 17 games now. Ben's used to playing 16 games or 13, 14, 15 games with some of the injuries he's had over the last handful of years, but going 17 games without that offensive line that he's used to having, without that massive run game that he's had throughout his career. And he doesn't have all the weapons. I mean, Claypool's a nice threat on the outside, but he doesn't have the Antonio Browns and the Santonio Holmes and the Antoine Randall L's and Hines and all these great players you can think back through Ben's career. He's not playing with the same weaponry he has in the past. And then you throw out that Watt, one of the best defensive linemen, best defensive players in the NFL, has got the groin injury. So, I mean, seeing Ben, at this point in stage in his career and with the lack of weapons he has on offense and defense, it's looking like a long year for the Steelers.
What's the first thing to go on a quarterback?
It just depends. When you look at Ben, it's the transfer of weight into every throw. It's like I said earlier, it's that velocity. He does not have that same velocity when he needs to rip a dig in over the middle. That's a ball that needs to carry 30 to 20 to 30 yards. When he's throwing a comeback from the left hash to the right sideline, that ball has to carry 30 yards in the air. You're just not seeing the ball get there as quickly and as rapidly. And when that ball hangs in the air, these DBs are so fast and so explosive and close cushion and close coverage so fast that when you start getting to 36, 37, 38 years old and the ball's hanging in the air, that's a bad recipe.
But Brady still has that arm strength, right? And Rodgers still has that arm strength. And that's rare because it feels like, you mentioned Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, now Ben. You have only so many throws in those arms, those shoulders, and especially if you have surgery. But how much of this is core and body strength? Because Brady is really big on that core with that torque to be able to deliver the ball. And as he said, hey, I'm not losing anything off my fastball.
Oh, a ton of it's core and a ton of it is lower body. I mean, that's your foundation, and that is where the ball going into a throwing motion all starts. It's from that back hip. It's transferring the weight. And it absolutely blows my mind watching Brady throw the ball at 44. I mean, the ball still has velocity on it. It still has zip. There's a couple times last night you saw him moving within the pocket because you lose the arm and you lose the velocity, but you also lose that bounce in your step and that explosion when you get to the top of the drop and you need to shift and slide into the middle or the soft spot of the pocket. And you saw that a little bit with Peyton. You're seeing it with Ben. You're not seeing it with Brady. He still has that pop. He took off and ran for a first down on 3rd and 7 last night. And he looked like he was 28. I just don't get it. It boggles my mind. But as far as the bounce and the pop and the pep in his step, he's got it. As far as velocity and the ball not tailing off at the end and the ball not being affected by different wind directions, Brady's not losing that. He still has that. And when he talks about playing till 50, maybe he's right. Maybe he does.
What is it like? I don't know if you felt this way, but you go out there and you're not excited to be out there as the starting quarterback, that you're not having fun or you don't feel well. Like, have you had that? Did you have that feeling where this is my job, but I don't want to go out here?
I haven't felt that, and I haven't played with many guys that have felt that, or at least I haven't played with many guys that I sensed were feeling that. What I have played with and what I have seen, is, especially in running backs, when you don't quite have the juice to get you through a hole or get you through a seam on 3rd and 3 that you used to be able to get to, and you don't quite have that pop or that pep in your step to explode through the line of scrimmage. I've seen that happen to guys, and it's deflating. It wrecks your confidence. It wrecks your morale. You maybe don't quite have the same love for the game because it's so much more difficult, or you know that you physically can't do what you used to be able to do. So I've definitely seen that. But as far as guys just not wanting to play and not loving the game anymore, after you get to 7, 8, 9, 10 years in the league, the only reason you got to that point is because you have that love, and that fire will always burn. But I haven't seen that, and if you have, let me know with certain guys. But I've seen that lack of explosion, that lack of athletic ability. I mean, you see it in running backs kind of at that 31, 32, 33 years old age, where guys start losing that explosiveness.
Well, there's defensive backs who don't want to tackle sometimes. And there's running backs who are just tired of getting pounded. Instead of going inside, they want to dance outside. I remember watching defensive backs, we've seen with running backs. Jerome Bettis talks about it. He said, I knew there were defensive backs that just didn't want to tackle me, that it was just, they knew it was going to hurt. And but they knew they had to give the impression. So they do the arm tackle or go, so I could imagine that. You'd see somebody come through the line and you're just going, oh, this is going to hurt.
Oh, I would always put myself in situations like, what would happen? I would just mentally see, like, I used to play against Jerome Bettis, and I've actually stood on the other sideline in warmups and watched him. And I've sat there and mentally thought, what would I do if I was standing in the B gap and the bus was coming downhill and he had 2 arms on the ball and I saw the 36 on his forehead get low? What would I do? Would I be able to keep my eyes open and at least try to get in his way, or at least be a speed bump in his way? So I've definitely, I can understand that feeling for corners, especially when you're a corner and you're 160 pounds or 185 pounds and you got 240 coming at you and it runs 4.2. That's a problem.
I mentioned this earlier in the show, that having that cornerback who can take away one side of the field, Trayvon Diggs of the Cowboys looks like he's a true shutdown corner. What does it do to your game plan when you're facing, and you faced a lot of great defensive backs, but they're taking away your best guy and taking, like Darrelle Revis used to do this, or Dion used to do that. What's that like when you go, I can't go there?
Well, it shrinks your game plan. I mean, you can go into a game plan and have 150 pass calls. And when you have to shut down half the field for 150 of your play calls, especially we had a tough time in Cincinnati with Chad Ochocinco, because Darrelle Revis would line up on him and he would give us fits. I mean, he was so difficult in one-on-one press coverage. And the great thing that Darrelle Revis had behind him was Rex Ryan, because he had that defensive front that he could bring pressures from all over the field, so multiple. And he would get in your head as a quarterback knowing, okay, I got to be prepared to throw hot on all of these plays. And then I know I got Revis over there one-on-one. So, I mean, it just shrinks your playbook. You know that on certain plays, when that shutdown corner that you're referring to is on that side of the field, you need to work that side of the field.
Yeah, I just can't imagine where you just go. And I mentioned, of all the positions, if you're a great defensive back, chances are you're not going to be on TV because you're never going in that direction. So we would never. You just were told that Darrelle Revis was great. You didn't really see it. Was there anybody else that you just went, I got to stay away from his side of the field?
I mean, Nnamdi Asomugha was a great corner. He played a ton of man when he was with the Oakland Raiders at the time. He would just lock you up, and he was so long and so physical that even if he didn't cover you for the whole time, he was so great at the line of scrimmage. He would reach out and get his hands on you and reroute the receiver, so that by the time you did get your eyes over there, you would see Nnamdi with his hands shoving your receiver almost out of bounds or almost to the ground. So you'd have to get off that read and move on. But that guy can be a game wrecker, no doubt. And you're right. I mean, there's not a lot of recognition. There's not a lot of interceptions that take you to the Pro Bowl. You don't get 7, 8, 9, 10 interceptions in a year that normally send a guy to the Pro Bowl. That guy normally gets 3 or 4 because they only threw at him, a dozen or so times.
Yeah, but would you rather worry about Darrelle Revis or Ed Reed?
Ed Reed had a bigger impact on the game because Ed didn't just cover one receiver. Ed was told to play a certain coverage in his helmet when the play came in, and he would read the offensive play and be in a spot he was never supposed to be in that could totally blow up a play or intercept the ball. So Ed was, I loved playing against Ed and I hated playing against Ed, but he was one of the best to do it for sure.
But I'm wondering, you talk about Junior Seau was like that, Troy Polamalu was like that. These guys who sort of, they just go where they feel like they need to go. And you're trying to call a play, and then you're trying to figure out, okay, I got to account for these guys because they're Hall of Famers. How difficult is that to do where somebody's unpredictable?
Yeah, you had to have three reads when you played against the Ed Reed and Troy Polamalu's of the world. And most defenses and defensive backs, you had to have two reads. It was a pre-snap and a post-snap read. But then when you played against one of those guys, you had to have a pre-snap read, a post-snap read. So once the ball was in your hands, which way they were going. And then before you threw it, you had to eye them a third time just to make sure they stayed in that spot before you threw it to the other spot. So those were three read defenders for sure.
It's hard enough to play the position. You got to factor in all of those things.
Yeah, you got to be careful of those ball hawks.
Yeah. Hey, great to talk to you as always. We appreciate your time, Carson. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Dan.
That's Carson Palmer, his weekly appearance during the NFL season, brought to you by our partner, Level Select CBD.